So now we're at May 28th of 2004. I had recently gotten out of a long-term relationship and I was really going through my own mental, emotional, spiritual healing, cleansing time, and my journal was really showing that. This was the first time where I was really getting active help from spirit, lots of advice, and just, every day was a different day for me. I was really raising in consciousness. And I think that going through a breakup at that time also helped me to have more compassion for myself and more understanding for myself, not to mention free time so that I could focus on myself as well. Having my heart broken, really stripped me raw at a time when I most needed to be stripped raw because I was really scraping underneath, so to speak, to get to the tartar that had built up over the years emotionally and mentally as mental patterns. This is very shortly before the psych ward, and I wrote the whole time. I even wrote when I was in the hospital. So I think that's very important. For those undergoing Kundalini, you may find some of the aspects of my journey mirror yours. There became as I got in touch with my higher self, I lost some contact with my normal perception of reality and who I was as an ego, as an identity, as a person. And I got grandiose, so to speak. Just listen to Madonna's Ray of Light, which is a very spiritual album. Thank you, Madonna. And I was understanding I must own my power. That's a fabulous song for owning your power. I think I fear because my power is unknown. And am I yielding it, my power, or is God yielding it? I have God, the ultimate, loving, creative power, yet I struggle. It's baffling. Love, and this is the advice that came, love more and more, closer, closer, closer. So what it was saying is that the more you love, experience love, create love in your life, the more that's going to occur to you in your reality. When I become aware of my power, I'm elated, quicker than a ray of light. And I think a lot of us can identify with that. Yet, at this point, I believe a therapist would probably be calling me a narcissist or thoughts of grandeur, thoughts of entitlement. They have all kinds of labels for these kinds of things when you start to feel really good about yourself, and so good, in fact, that you're scaring the sheep. Understand, I was experiencing many levels of consciousness at once. I had no idea that this was going on yet. I just thought that I'd just become a better psychic. So I just thought I got an upgrade, no big deal. Well, actually it was a big deal, but I expected it. You get a raise at work, you get a pat on the back, you get to graduate, all of these different signposts in your life to tell you that you're doing good and that you're moving forward. The only sign of my evolution has been attracting different kinds of clients and obviously growing in my psychic skills. So I felt like I had just reached another level. I had been channeling Hermes a bit, which was, new and exciting for me, and the higher self situation, and then just starting to have visions during regular parts of the day. And it was taking over. It really was. I only had to work one day a week, and the rest of the time was spent really with myself in a bubble of spiritual understanding. So I was really taking time to get to know myself and rise. Okay, so I wonder if I could go over my journals and introduce myself to the world through my first book. Madonna said, "Fate fits karma, so use it." Sometimes it makes me sad. One perspective of my life is very hellish. Karma, but I needed to remember that karma is just a teaching tool to evolve and grow your soul. How could I help so many suffering if I did not become intimately infused with it myself? I tracked most of my painful progress in writing. I've been keeping a journal since 1988 when I was in 8th grade. Thank you, Mr. Nephew. What a gift. I realize I need me now more than ever. Writing about myself, compassionate, understanding, could be very healing for me, which means it can be potentially healing for others. I would like to point out the archetypal symbols in my life. I guess I always needed a beautiful environment to be reminded of God. Beauty proves God's existence. I feel loved when it is reflected in my environment, and I can do that for myself now. Love attracts all things to you, all things that you vibrate to, all things you find interesting. It introduces you to other like souls who will love you. It gives you more than you can imagine. All mankind's children can benefit from this message, and I have been chosen as its messenger. See? Right there. Therapists get me right there. Bam! You are narcissistic. Here I am, channeling, put that in quotes, all of this information, and my human side starts getting upset. So at this point, there was a bit of disassociation. I began calling my body my animal. I began having a different understanding of what this fleshy thing was. That it's not my personality, it's not my psyche, this is my animal, my pet, like my cat. And I don't mean to minimize it by any means, but I did have a bit of a dissociation, and I think that honestly in the long run it's a disassociation that I needed. But what I'm speaking about here is that I had been channeling for days and writing a lot. I would get friendly reminders from my spirit guides like, hey, don't you need to go to the bathroom or eat something or maybe get some sleep? And at that point I disassociated and said, yes, my animal needs sleep, my animal needs food, and I must bathe my animal. And so that was very helpful actually as a channel. For a little while I'm counseling myself here about relationships, about men, about the men that have been in my life. Again, just getting at the plaque, getting at the issues deep inside me. And then all of a sudden I have this epiphany that I'm supposed to be a director, I'm supposed to write movies and direct. And it's pretty amazing, but again, a therapist would say, you know, you're being grandiose. And it was just an epiphany, just something that hit me. And I went on several pages. I don't want to live in denial, ever again. I need to know all truths and accept them. My nightmares that shocked me out of paralyzing states. I'm talking about sleep paralysis here. When I was young, I was in an extremely abusive household, and apparently I'm the only one that remembers. Interesting how that works. So I had sleep paralysis, and so I'm realizing here that one of the reasons why I had the sleep paralysis was to make some other reality worse than my waking reality. And I really did the trick. And then I say, I just saw a drawing in my 1990 pink journal of 3 women. My psychic self, my lady from India, and my Egyptian self. And what I'm talking about there is, you know, 1990, I was in high school, and I was just drawing because I was probably very bored. And there were 3 personalities that I drew that I later integrated into my psyche and my personality. And you could say these are soul fragments of women I've been before. I just realized I'm taking stock of my entire life in a passionate and loving way. I am unburying all my treasures and my tumors. I am releasing and healing my toxins, cleansing my soul. I shall heal my wounds and give birth to my gifts. And at this point I was learning about the different perceptions that we can choose to have, ways that we can choose to judge what we see. And at this point I was at the elementary level of, well, that's a hell view or that's a heaven view. And that's the way I was describing it to myself. And then in the hell perception, I asked the question, was Jesus insane? Was Buddha possessed? Am I real? Question of the saint. And my answer was, believe, build it, they come. So my spirit guides watch too many movies. And then I wrote, codependence is the opposite of humanitarian. And that's true. And I like to chew on that from time to time. All right. So in the next video, I talk about being in the hospital with my Kundalini symptoms, or what some would call bipolar, depending on what level of consciousness you agree to. Thank you for joining me. Namaste, and blessed be.